one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first order of business is the approval of minutes for April 3rd, 2017, for the regular meeting. Do I have a motion?
So move.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 5-0. Motion passes. April 3rd, executive session, 2017.
So move.
Second.
Oh, wait, is that executive session?
Yes.
I don't have those, I'm sorry.
Okay, so let me repeat that. April 3rd, executive session. Do I have a motion?
I'll move that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Discussion.
I'm sorry, are they in my mailbox and I just didn't pick them up? Oh, I'll just abstain, that's fine, I'm sorry, yeah, okay.
So Jill and Mike, okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
4 to 1 abstention. April 4th, 2017, the work session meeting.
So move.
Did you have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0, motion passes. April 5th, 2017, a work session meeting.
So move with an amendment.
Do I have a second?
Yes, second.
And that, so I would move to amend, I was at that one. It says I arrived at 7:30, so Wednesday and Thursday are mixed up. So just, I'm regular attendance, so amend so that I'm fully in attendance.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0, motion passes. And the last one, April 6th, 2017, the work session meeting.
So move with an amendment.
I'll second that.
Amendment.
And this is the one I arrived at 7:30. This was the Thursday.
All those in favor of the amendment? Aye.
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 5-0, motion passes. So tonight, first, we have a showcase, and that's by Jill. So we're going to have her come up to the podium and with Cindy Duckworth, and they have a presentation. So we're excited to hear that. I think it's on the flood insurance.
So we're having some minor technical difficulties.
Okay, we understand that.
But we did provide it for you at the dais. So good evening, Madam President, members of the Town Council. I am Jill Sabo, and this is Cindy Duckworth. And thank you for the opportunity tonight for this short presentation on the CRS program and what it means to Narragansett. So just a brief explanation of where CRS comes from. FEMA, which is the Federal Emergency Management Agency, administers a program called the National Flood Insurance Program, or the NFIP. The NFIP offers reasonably priced flood insurance in communities that comply with the minimum standards. The minimum standards are that the community must adopt and enforce the floodplain management regulations, which we do through our zoning ordinance, and those standards must satisfy the minimum criteria set forth in the Code of Federal Regulations. They do. We adopted the model which came from REMA, which is the state's emergency management agency. All 39 cities and towns and 1 tribe in the state of Rhode Island are part of the NFIP. The community rating system recognizes and encourages floodplain management that exceeds those minimum standards. And they encourage that by reducing the flood insurance premiums for all of the policyholders or all of the property owners within that community. The way that CRS works is they offer participation through activities. Those flood insurance rates nationwide could be reduced up to 45%. Some of the activities that Narragansett currently participates in is Activity 320, which is the map information service. So the town provides basic flood insurance to anyone who comes, who walks in, who calls, who emails us. We provide insurance information as well. Activity 330, outreach projects. We send a letter out every year to everyone who has a property in the floodplain. Activity 420, and this is where we got our most points, as you can see, 708 points. The open space preservation. So we actually mapped all of the open space in the town of Narragansett that is either deed restricted, town-owned property. It is controlled by the TNC, the Nature Conservancy, or the Audubon Society, and all that property is protected. So all of that property that's within the floodplain, we were able to get points for it. And Activity 450 I thought was important because it's the stormwater management. So that's a committee that enforces regulations for soil and erosion control and water quality. Our engineering and DPW departments, they provided documentation regarding erosion control, water quality. DPW provided all of their documentation in how they, in their standard operating procedures, on how they routinely and emergency maintenance of all of those structures in towns. Those are drainage basins, culverts, et cetera.
Narragansett is credited with 1,785 points in the CRS program. That is a rate class of 7. As of May 1st, 2017, Narragansett has reduced the premiums for policyholders in town by 15%. This is the best reduction that can currently be achieved in Rhode Island. Narragansett was a Class 8 at 10%. There are currently 9 communities in Rhode Island who participate in CRS, and only 2 communities with a Class 7 rating, us and Charlestown.
Okay, so we have Narragansett by the numbers. This is sort of interesting for those of you who like numbers. The NFIP policies in effect in Narragansett right now, it's almost 1,500. The total premium value is just under 1.7 million. The number of policies in the A zone, so there are 2 major special flood hazard areas in Narragansett, the A zone and the V zone. So it sort of breaks it down. You can see there's a lot of policies in the A zone. The remainder of that are folks who are not in a special flood hazard area but elect to get flood insurance anyway. They also receive the discount. The total coverage value of structures is about $413 million, and then it sort of, you can see how it breaks down the claims made and the claims paid. The thing that I find the most interesting is the bottom 2. When we were a Class 8, we saved policyholders approximately $108 per policy, and now at this Class 7, it jumps to $159 per policy. That savings goes directly to the property owners, to the policyholders in Narragansett. It doesn't come through the town. They see it on their bill. Every year, the Building Inspection Office files for a recertification, which is essentially showing that we still have those credits obtained through CRS, and every 5 years, FEMA audits us. In 2016, the result of our audit brought us to a Class 7 rating.
This was a collaborative effort. Many departments and individuals worked to make this happen. Engineering, Public Works, IT, the library, and the fire department.
So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Questions?
The public, do they have access to this? Is this on any place?
The PowerPoint?
Yeah.
I'm happy to put it up.
Yeah, I
Sure.
think it would be helpful for the public.
Absolutely.
Jill, do the owners have to do anything, or does this automatically come up? Do they have to notify?
They have to do absolutely nothing. It actually took effect May 1st, and so the savings will show up on their bill.
Great.
Now, these are FEMA-based insurance policies, right?
Yes.
Okay.
This is for flood insurance, yep.
Right.
Offered through the
Okay.
NFIP.
Now, Lloyd's of London are privately providing flood insurance. I have a client whose flood insurance in Middlebridge on the South Kingston side was $2,900 a year. He gets it through Latham, through Lloyd's of London, and it's $1,700 a year. So there's a major reduction. Instead of using the FEMA base, going to private insurance. So that's something that's transpired this spring also. So that's Latham down in Westerly, if anybody is paying attention, or has flood.
Thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you.
Nice job. We're going to move on to open forum, and when you come up to the podium, if you could say your name and your address, you'll get 3 minutes to speak. Is there anybody interested in speaking to the public?
Gloria Roman, 33 Wheatfield Cove Road.
Gloria, speak into the mic like that.
Gloria Roman, 33 Wheatfield Cove Road, Narragansett, Rhode Island. Although the library negotiations are supposedly privileged information, there seems to be some misinformation being given out by some of the council members while they're talking to their friends, when they email people, when they chat over coffee, or casual conversations when they visit Dunkin' Donuts. Gilbane, as far as I know, has not raised their price, and you all know that. The present library was only a backup plan if the bond issue did not pass. The bond issue did pass. 2/3 of the population said that they wanted to spend the $5.8 million, which was arrived at the price of the supermarket building that was initially negotiated by the previous town council manager and solicitor, and the $3.3 million that was calculated to be the cost of fixing the interior of the building. But of course, you all know that. The library board and the Friends have started fundraising, but it's kind of impossible to ask somebody to give money when we don't know definitely where we're going. I'm sure none of you would give a donation to something that you have no idea what's happening. But of course, you all know that. You claim to be fiscally responsible, but the difference between the assessed value of the supermarket and the proposed price of the supermarket, as far as, I don't know this for sure because we haven't been involved in the nitty-gritty, but from the information we had before, is approximately $6,000 to $7,000. Now, looking at that compared to approximately $7.5 million that will cost the town to rehab the present building, and the likelihood is that there will not be any reimbursement for the present building, nor will there be, most likely, grants will not happen for the present dilapidated building. And all of that will happen in the marketplace. So I think it's a no-brainer. $5.8 million, getting 40% reimbursement.
Thank you.
Compared to what will cost for the old library.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak? The woman in the back. Yeah. Come on up and state your name and address.
My name is Frances Dorsey Chevalier, and I live at 6 Dolphin Road on Great Island. And at last month's council meeting, you heard...
Can you speak up just a little bit so the public can hear you?
Yes. At last month's town council meeting, you heard speakers who live at 40 Seacrest Road about encroachment of a deck that goes into the right-of-way on Salt Pond. I am here to represent the residents of the island. We've been, for the past year, we've been circulating a petition to get this brought before the council. We contacted a year ago when construction had begun in the spring of '06. We began to see the construction of the encroachment into our right-of-way. The conversation continued, and CRMC and the building inspector's office was called. Brian Hannigan from CRMC came out on 2 occasions, and it was, in fact, an illegal encroachment of that construction of the deck into the town's deeded right-of-way. He stated that the state made the rulings on such encroachments, but the town maintains the right-of-ways and enforcement and the responsibility for those rights-of-way. The cement encroachment is protruding at an unsafe level as you decline to go towards the water. It's almost at head level, and people have moorings out there, and if they come in at sunset, it's difficult to see. It's quite dangerous, actually, and a liability. The residents of the island who live by or on the water take their access to the water very seriously. People who live on the water obviously have docks and have all of those, all of that accessibility. The people who don't live on the water don't have. such as putting in our boats and kayaks and canoes, playing with children and grandchildren at the beach. And that infringement is just not acceptable to many of the residents on the island. They were told, even people were told that, don't worry about it, you don't have to come down to the water here anyway, but it is a public right-of-way, and that was just not fair. Mr. DeCecco in Public Works had no further information for us at the town. I know that things have continued, but this has been going on now for a year, and we feel as though had the town conducted proper inspections at the time prior to completion of the dock, this
You need to wrap it up, okay?
This infraction could have been mitigated at the time, and we'd also like to petition the town to really take our stance seriously.
Thank you very much. Carol?
Good evening. I'll make
Good
this
evening.
brief. First of all, I want to commend the Parks and Recreation Department on their new brochure. It's very well done, as they do every year, and I think they do an outstanding job with that particular document. My second comment is to reference the University of Rhode Island. In this respect, they absolve themselves of any responsibility or any need to try and create a variety of activities during senior week, as opposed to the other state universities that are part of the New England Consortium. And when you go online, you'll find out what they have for their students during senior week. And it certainly is not a bus company, an outside entity for profit, just driving them to places to drink. That's all I have to say. They are totally disgraceful in their lack of initiative or motivation to do something different for senior week, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Carol.
I'm Dr. Padma Venkatraman from 67 Lakewood Drive. You all know me as the not-so-crazy lady who urges you to please put potholes on Kingstown Road so we can slow down traffic. And I continue to urge the town to please ask that those two roads be slowed down. However, I'm here today to ask for fast action on the library, please. My daughter asked, will the library still be there this summer? And I want to let her know that the library will be in its new location, not just for her, but for every one of our children here in Narragansett, because that library is the heart of this community. It is a wonderful institution. We do not need our wonderful librarians to go without pay for a week, let alone longer than that, because a building is being renovated. They are so dedicated, and I have lived in other countries, I have lived in other parts of our lovely nation, and our librarians are wonderful. Our library is wonderful, and I can stop right there, and I will stop right there because I know several people have to speak, but please, I beg you to take this matter seriously and to do something about it fast. Thank you.
Steve? Town manager, did you get the name of the street with the potholes that the woman had said? Kingstown Road? Yeah.
Stephen Ferrandi, 44 Sylvan Road, Narragansett.
Oh,
Thank
hold on,
you.
Steve.
Oh,
Go.
excuse me. Stephen Ferrandi, 44 Sylvan Road. Thank you, council members. As Carol stated, it's a time of year where certain neighborhoods and more than used to be get inundated with these organizations with these bus trips. So just as an example, Eastwood Look had 13 school buses come into our neighborhood, 7 on one side of the entrance street, 6 on the other in a residential neighborhood, with the potential of 600 young adult students, whoever. I suppose I could have bought a ticket if I wanted to get on the bus. So it's open to anyone that wants to go. But the idea is what we're doing is, and I know Sean's been working on this, and we really don't have something crafted to really prevent this, but the neighborhood associations are completely against this activity. And, you know, we look forward to working with the town as any way we can to meet with them and try to come up with this. We've done a lot of work on our own. We visited the PUC. Nick Mattiello has a house on Green Lane. I have his cell phone number. I spoke with him. I've got him trying to work on it a little bit. Because this is such an assault on these single-family neighborhoods that you wouldn't believe. There's not one person in this room that would welcome 13 school buses coming into a residential street and thinking that's okay. The police and Sean have done great work all year long with this to maintain, all, you know, hit the party houses and all of that. And then what happens is these outside entities come in and, you know, I think they have to be looked at very carefully. And it's maybe it's legal, maybe it's not. I don't know. We haven't done enough research. Maybe Sean has done more research on it. But the bottom line is this is going to become, if we don't get ahead of it, is going to be the new norm of partying in Narragansett. You know, there's nothing saying that I can't organize a bus trip of 20 buses and say, okay, I'm going to have everybody picked up in Anawan Cliffs or, you know, somewhere else in town. There's nothing on the books right now, supposedly. So I don't think the neighborhoods really deserve this. Any neighborhood in Narragansett deserves this. And I, you know, like I said, I welcome the opportunity to work with the solicitor. You know, we have an attorney ourselves. It's Mike Garcillo, the solicitor from South Kingston. He's helped us work on this. So we just think it needs to be pinpointed, and because it's not the right direction that these neighborhoods should be going in at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak?
My name is James Greifendorf, architect, Newport, Rhode Island, 6 Boughton Road. I was the architect for the Gilbane construction with Jack Saravo of the old or abandoned Belmont Market, and I just wanted to say I think that building will be fantastic. I know you're moving forward on it. I hear some controversy, but I don't understand the details of that. It's a great building. It's so flexible. It has such wide bays to it that it just would be perfect, and it can be expanded outward on the first level and expanded very simply vertically, like a lot of libraries are in the country, which I've explored, which have mezzanines. And I'm sure the budget isn't there to do that initially. I just think it's a perfect building. And I'm sure everybody else wants it to happen. Obviously, I hear that. And one last point is it's a small project. It's not that much construction budget, but it would be interesting to have an architectural competition, even though it's a teeny project. And we had one in Newport on additions to the Newport Art Museum. And there was many architects that provided some very interesting conceptual sketches, and you could scale it down because it's not a major building. But I just think it's a spectacular use for this building. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wishing to speak? Yeah. I usually say Stanley, but it was a woman behind you. Sorry.
Hi, Gail Shields, Earl's Court. You know why we need a library? You know what the $5.8 million was derived from, or you should by now. You know that 67% of the voters in November approved this. 4 of the 5 of you, when you were running for re-election, said you supported this. You understand that nobody will be, we cannot go to foundations or big donors to ask for money until we have something to show them that we're going to spend it on. So it's time to settle down, work together, and get this done. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. Stanley?
I just wanted today to speak want to speak to benefit the future teachers of America. One of them, Megan, just left my rental to teach. Even though the town said, under God with justice for all, Megan paid more taxes than others in this town. She also was that URI student with that negative image. And Megan was a perfect student. She came and asked us when she wanted to have a party, can I have a party? I've got parking plans. We make sure we're all organized so we won't disrupt the area. And everything was so perfect. Therefore, all I'm going to ask for is that you treat all future teachers without the tax discrimination, nor emphasize this student negativity talk. I don't think that is just, because there's so many good students like Megan, who is now a teacher. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Sue?
Good evening, Sue Bush, 65 Robinson Street. I just wanted to speak briefly and broadly about the use variances, special use variances, and dimensional variances in our town. One came on last week, or last meeting, and will be on again later, but I just want to speak in broad terms, not about that one in particular. When I went back and I looked at the actual standards for variances, I was kind of shocked. For any variance, there's actually supposed to be a hardship proven. And for, I believe it's a use variance, the applicant must show that the property would have no beneficial use without granting the variance. A use variance also said that you cannot look at neighboring properties of non-conforming use, existing non-conforming use, and say that that's a reason to grant that use. I can't tell you how many planning and zoning boards I've been in when they say it's consistent with the neighborhood and things like that. I'm really concerned that we're not even really following our own ordinance when it comes to development in this town. And somebody said it last week, and I think it's true. We're kind of on a downward spiral. We've got fewer and fewer lots to develop. And, I'm all for Joe homeowner improving his property. I think that's great. You all see the beauty and the importance of keeping the charm of Narragansett, as was evidenced in the Historic District Commission meeting you just attended. But what I'm concerned about is the developers who have their eyes and their paws on a piece of property that they know is substandard, that they know might be wetlands, that they know doesn't have enough dimensionality for the type of building they want to do there, and they try to do it anyway, and they get their way 9 out of 10 times. Some of these folks have purchased this property in not so moral ways. Some of these people do business with people on the planning and zoning boards, and quite frankly, I think we need to do what we can to protect this town. Even you, Patrick, said that we were selling out, and that's exactly what we've been doing, and I'd really like to see us put a stop to this and protect open space in this town. We keep hearing about the sea levels rising and so forth due to global warming, but I'm kind of wondering how much of that is due to overdevelopment and stormwater runoff. We have a lot of environmental issues due to not having enough green space, not enough trees. We need to do what we can to protect this town, the charm of it, and stop the overdevelopment, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Lynn?
Hi, Lynn Notar Antonio, Narragansett Ave. I totally agree with Sue Bush, talking about substandard lots. I went today, I took some pictures that I would like for the council to take a peek at, and you can keep them as well. My question has been to numerous different people in town, what is going on Wanda Street? Across from 39 Wanda Street is a building that's going up, and you talk about substandard. It doesn't meet the setbacks. Maybe it got something through the zoning, that I don't know. It's all swampland. The house is built 5 feet from swampland. I know someone who tried to purchase this property 4 years ago and was told it was not a buildable lot. But today, there's a house going up. And it's not 1 story, it's not 2 stories, it's 3 stories. And I know one of the neighbors on the street contacted me and said a couple weeks back, there is a garage door. They put in windows. So they called the building inspector's office, and lo and behold, that garage door opening is back. But it just seems this is a very shady deal. I don't know who owns the property, but a friend of mine, like I said, tried to buy the property a couple years back and was told it was not a buildable lot, and that is not today. And talk about zoning issues and wetlands, there is no way in these pictures, and if you all take a walk over there, there is no way they are 50 feet from a wetland. So I'd like to give you these pictures. You can all take a look at them.
You can give them to the clerk.
And I'll give them to the clerk. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Anybody else wishing to speak?
Mary Ann Grinchenko, 221 Foddering Farm Road. I am president of the Friends of Narragansett Library, and a few things do concern me. I was told by a fellow member, a friend, that she asked one of the town council members last week during a little chat prior to or it was 2 weeks ago, prior to the town council meeting, what was the delay? And that the Friends were very concerned and what's going on. And this individual said, the Friends aren't really concerned. They haven't done any fundraising. What have they done to support the new library? And this friend member said, well, really, we've done some fundraising, but very little because nothing has been established. Would you give a substantial amount of money to a donation if there wasn't a site or something substantial to donate to? I also received an email from a town council member asking me 2 questions. How much money has been raised to relocate the library to the Belmont site? Well, about 4 years ago, we started a building fund. And it's minimal because we know that we had to start to work towards this effort, and we had some bags printed out. And at the very bottom of the bag, it shows the building bursting at its seams, and it says growing the building fund. And we also had T-shirts made. And we've been selling them for the past 4 years, and we've set up a building fund. Same logo, growing for the building fund. And we've made approximately $4,000 in the past 3 years selling T-shirts at the library. I don't have the correct amount, but similar to that. Last summer, before the referendum was passed, the Friends started having meetings, and we wanted to educate the people of Narragansett why it was so essential to have a new library. So we worked effortlessly, and we sponsored Shout Out for Your Library, and it was extremely well attended. We sold more tickets than we had printed, and we wanted to educate the public why it was so important, because everybody does love our library, and it's because of the staff. And I can see my time is ending, I'm sorry. Yes. What I don't understand is why these things are important. We made $8,000 at that fair, and we do have a building fund. Yes, but we cannot solicitate and work aggressively for a building fund unless we have some more viable.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak in open forum? Laurie? I apologize.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm trying.
Lori Kelly, Wildfield Farm Road. I just want to thank everyone for coming out once again and supporting the library. And I agree with all the points that have been made tonight. We make them repeatedly, and I'm sure it gets old to the councilman sitting up there. But this is something that's really important to the community, and we're here speaking on their behalf. One thing I do want to emphasize is that I'm assuming all of you have bought houses. If the state was offering you 40% of your purchase price, I think you would jump on that, and you would not be bickering about, you know, maybe we haven't raised enough money here, or maybe you want to get a better price for it there. 40% from the state. And I'll say what I said at the workshop, you know, I guess a year ago, is that if Narragansett has never claimed this money from the state, and that doesn't mean that we're being prudent or fiscally responsible. What it means is that my tax dollars have paid for a library in Tiverton, and they've paid for a library in Barrington and Cranston and all the other cities who have successfully applied for and gotten state funds. We know, because we have been in communication with OLIS, that they support our plan to move to Belmont, and we can expect a maximum of 50%, but historically, since 1965, the towns have generally received 43%. We have been conservative in the numbers the board has, you know, bandied about, and we've said, let's assume we get 40% back. That's before private donations from individuals or foundations like the Champlain Fund. So again, I don't want to use up all my time. I appreciate the hard work that's gone into this up to now by both the library supporters and the council, and we again implore you to vote for taking over this building and moving forward with the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. All right, hold on a second. Anybody else wishing to speak from the public? Seeing nobody else, I'm just going to turn it to Mr. Murray for a minute.
Okay, I take full responsibility for being the rogue town councilman, and I did ask questions of the director. The bond has passed. The money is there, okay? What concerns me is I know friends of the library are very passionate, and they want to see this project move forward. I'm hesitant, and I'll tell you why. The city of Tiverton had a $10 million library. Their friends of the library raised $3 million, okay? I just like to see more, not passion, but skin in the game from the friends of the library, okay? Our first building committee meeting, okay, there were 4 representatives from the library, or considered to be representatives of the library. It was asked if somebody could be a secretary and take notes. Now, one person stepped up, okay? So right there, that kind of put up a roadblock for me. I mean, it's okay to sit back and spend taxpayer-bonded money, okay? And I know this may be a bucket of cold water on everybody, but this is my position.
Thank you, Pat.
Well, I'm not through yet.
Well,
I think I got 3 minutes.
Yeah, no, it's open for him, so finish
All
it
right,
up. Yeah.
thank you. Yikes. I want to see a big thermometer on the side of on the library right now with your goal. I want to see activity. I know the young ladies won an award a couple of weeks ago for their, event at the towers. I have been paying attention, believe it or not. But I want to see some more skin in the game, I want to, I mean, it just seems to me that everybody's wringing their hands waiting for this taxpayer money, so they can spend it. I want to see some more fundraising activity. And if I seem jaded, and that's just my position.
Thank you, Patrick. All right, we're moving on to the next item. We fit. Okay, so, excuse me, it was open forum. There were no more hands up in the audience, so I turned to a council member. So that's exactly what happened. Nobody else had responded to open forum. We turned it to the council. Now we're going to move on to the business of the meeting, which is the next item on the agenda. Okay? Thank you. Okay, the next one is a motion, a motion to schedule a public hearing for an application for a secondhand license for Joseph Stanlin, 140 Point Judith Road, Unit A2, Plat BP, Lot 289-3.
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And what is the date on that, Ann?
June 5th at 8 o'clock. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0, motion passes. Do I have any council members wishing to pull an item off the consent
Yeah,
agenda?
I have two.
Which numbers?
Number 1 and number 10.
Okay. Any other council members? Approving the consent agenda, absent of the number 1 and 10, do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0, the consent agenda passes. Motion 1, a motion to ratify the referral from James Callahan on behalf of Pensco Trust Company, Inc., Angela Thompson, for a waiver of the sewer policy for Plat D, Lot 131, 119 Boone Street, to the Sewer Policy Committee for review. This was on by Jeff. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Mike?
Discussion. I had somebody reach out to me with some questions on this, so is it okay to open this up?
Oh,
for-
absolutely.
Okay, sure. Chris.
Hi, Chris Scolia, Kingstown Road. I'm here today as the chairman of the Narragansett Pier Residents Association. I believe that the remarks I'd like to make on this agenda item are representative of the views of the vast majority of our organization, which is over 100 dues-paying members this year, all of which live within 1 mile of this property. There's a lot of concern about this agenda item because the applicant is due to appear before the planning board tomorrow. There's a hearing at the planning board for this applicant to decide, or I guess what they're trying to do is convert this property into 3 condos from a single-family residence. By you guys approving this request tonight, it's like putting the cart before the horse. I really feel that you need to hear from the planning board. You know, is this even something that they're inclined to let the applicant do? A lot of concern within our organization about this, if this might be some way to circumvent the 4 unrelated ordinance. Can anybody in town say, hey, I want my single-family residence to be 3 units? Can anybody do that?
No.
Can each one of these units, if it passes, be rented to 4 unrelateds? Can 12 unrelated persons live in this property if this goes through? Is there an impact on public safety, the traffic, the on-street parking? Within 2 blocks of this property, there are young children. What effect would this change have on the neighborhood they're growing up in? Within 2 blocks of this property are older people who are retired. What effect will this change have on the community they're retiring in? And even if there was some hardship that planning or zoning or whatever said that a variance would address, isn't a variance supposed to only give the minimum amount of relief necessary to relieve the hardship? And if that's the case, is turning this from 1 unit to 3 units, is that the minimum? Or could 2 units be the minimum? Or could an in-law suite that was restricted to a close family member be the minimum? So I think, and I think a majority of our members think, that this needs to be worked out in planning. They need to come to you with a recommendation. It would be putting the cart before the horse for you guys to say, yeah, sure, go ahead and get in front of this other committee before that's done.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you. Jeff, can I just ask you to speak to process, if you can come on up? Because it seems to me like business as usual. It came to the subcommittee, so why don't you just clarify? I mean, it usually comes to...
I take full responsibility for the agenda item. It was a scheduling issue on my part. It has nothing to do with the planning board. It has nothing to do with the zoning board. It has nothing to do with unrelated persons or anything else. It's a simple ratification of referral to the Sewer Policy Committee, which is standard practice. The council has not voted on the applicant's application yet, nor have any of the boards. The agenda item is pretty straightforward. It's just a ratification of a referral to a committee.
Thank you.
Jeff, maybe while you're up there, maybe it might be a good idea to explain why it went from the 5,000 square foot building went from a single unit to a 3-unit under the state guidelines, correct?
I have nothing to add to that. And
Well,
the
they're
agenda item
affordable
is
units.
a referral to the sewer policy committee.
Right, right. But it's,
I think it's inappropriate for me to talk about planning or zoning or any other process.
okay,
It's not
All
my
right.
bailiwick.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just looking for process.
okay.
Any other comments?
All right, well, I'll make a comment, because under the, it was looked at, there's 5,000 square feet, and the reason why, there's gonna be 2 affordable units and then 1 market unit. And I believe under the state guidelines, you have the ability, and the town ordinance, you have the ability to add those units because they're affordable units. So that's why it's not market-based, they're affordable units, so. I'm sure that's probably gonna make things worse for you, but that's where we're at.
Any other discussion? Anybody from the council?
Yeah, you guys serve on the sewer policy. I've never served on it, so just so the public understands, I think what happens, and tell me if I'm wrong, but if somebody wants the sewer extension, they send a letter to the town. Typically, the right person would be Ann, and then Ann puts this agenda item on to refer it to the sewer policy committee. Then, after the sewer policy committee looks at it, they come up with a recommendation to the council, and then at that time, we vote to approve or deny that request. Is that correct? Okay, so here, if we didn't refer it, we're basically saying we're not interested at all in the sewer extension here without looking at those things. That would be, so I just want to, if that's the sentiment, I just want to know if that is the sentiment, so.
So the process has always been the same, so we refer it to the board.
Correct.
I mean,
you
we've
know,
done
I
that
mean,
with every project,
apparent-
so it'd be weird not to do that?
Apparently, there's gonna be a dogfight over there at the planning, so it doesn't matter what we do here tonight.
So I understand the concern, but I also understand the process. So I think the process is intact, the process is legitimate. I think if there's hardcore reservation, then the planning board room needs to be
they'll mill
full
through it.
with people.
Okay, the motion's on the floor. We have Matt moved it, and Mike, you second. All those in favor? Aye.
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 5-0, motion passes. Motion 10, a motion to receive and place on file the zoning board of review rules of procedures that were adopted by the board on April 20th, 2017. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
So this is a good segue. I wanted to pull this item based on Sue Bush's comments in public forum a couple weeks ago. So I read, and it might not be appropriate, but I just wanted to make sure it didn't kind of go away. I read through the rules, or the board shall establish written rules of procedure, and in these rules, I did not see anything related to public posting of minutes for the zoning board.
Because they don't, right?
So I didn't know if it was part of this particular amendment to their rules and procedures, but I also want to make sure that the comments that were made by Sue are taken to heart, and that all minutes from all planning and zoning boards get posted within a very short period of time.
And I agree. We actually asked after, and they said that are they not posted? Is that and because I agree. I mean, I remember Sue brought it up then. Presently not posted?
Presently, they're not. They're on file in my office and in planning department.
Yeah, and so I understand that they're readily available to come down to town hall and get a copy of them, but it's 2017, so I'm hoping these get posted within 24 hours of a meeting.
Yeah, I would agree with that too, but I don't,
Or
48
whatever time frame the clerk.
They will get posted after they've been approved by the planning and zoning board.
yeah, so we can make that change? Is that a policy?
We
that
already started with the
Okay.
council minutes. They're online.
Okay, so that, you'll be able to see those at least within the 48 hours.
Great.
Okay, any other?
Yeah, I just
Yeah,
had a
no,
que-
I think that's
Ann,
good.
Ann, what kind of labor intensity is involved with,
It's workable.
is it? Okay.
Thank you, Ian, we knew
Thank
you
you.
could do it. Any other comments?
I think Rick had his hand up.
Mr. Lima, come right up to the podium. going to give you your 3 minutes.
Richard Lima, Mumford Road. When you're asking for these minutes from these boards to be posted, the problem being is we, as a board, sits down and discusses whatever's on the agendas that day, and then minutes are done. Those minutes also have to be approved at the following board meeting, which is 30 days away. So you got to give some lead time for all of this. So I would suggest that you put at least 30 days and maybe 1 week into this to give.
Yeah, I'm not,
allow-
so I'm not suggesting that we change the process. I'm suggesting that they get posted electronically so that people don't have to come down to town hall to get them. That's all.
But some of it might be changed, Councilman.
Well,
In
then
other
after they're approved,
After
so
they're-
after they're
Right, So that would
approved,
be roughly 30 days plus maybe another 3-4 days. That's just, I
yeah,
just
that's
wanted to
fine.
go-
As long as when after the 34th day, I can go to www.
Fine, just
and
want
I can
you to
go
know
fi-
it.
Yeah, that's fine.
48 hours is
No,
fine.
I know,
All
I
right,
was,
So
you
it's
know.
going to take some time,
get
but
it, I
I'm
know.
willing to, is everybody good with that? I think that's. Sure.
So maybe on this item, we should hold off the acceptance of receiving placed on file to, if we want to incorporate some of these concerns.
No, I
They
think we
don't
could.
have to be in their rules.
Yeah,
That's
we-
the secretary's
Yeah,
office part.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so-
I hijacked this motion to make sure that,
Right.
So we can-
continue to talk about it. So I didn't realize it was still being worked on and so forth, so that's
All
great. and
right,
I
so we
appreciate
can adopt the rules and the procedures, and we can ask as a council to make sure that when we get those approved minutes from the zoning and planning, that they be posted on the website. I think that's fair enough.
Doable, she can do it.
Any other questions on the policies or procedures of the planning board? Sue?
These rules are for you to receive and place on file, not approve the rules.
Okay.
Susan Cesario, 80 Boone Street. Just as a point, and actually, I met with Mr. Manny and then Town Solicitor Dawson, and we talked about these meetings and minutes through the town. The Attorney General for Rhode Island, Mr. Kilmartin, I believe, is the Attorney General. He has published an Open Meetings Act, so they're not our rules, they're state rules. You have to, if it's a public meeting, people can attend. They must be published within 30 days. They do not have to be approved. So you don't have to wait for approval before you post them. You can change them later, but they can be out there for the public. That's it.
Good
Thank you.
information, thanks, Sue.
The manager has something to say?
These points you're making are well taken. Sue, we appreciate you bringing that up at the last meeting. So we are working on it. It's still a work in progress. We're trying to figure out the correct amount of days and so forth and the amount of work to get them out there. Mrs. Cesario was correct that they have to be published, which we do, but in the spirit of transparency, we're going to put them on our website as well. So that's something we are working on, and as soon as feasible, you'll start seeing them, and we'll have an answer for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so motion 10 is to receive on file the zoning board review of rules and procedures. We have a move by Matt, second by Jill. We've had discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0, motion passes. On to new business. Number 11, a motion to adopt the appropriation ordinance for the 2017-18 fiscal year. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Do I have a second? Do I have discussion? This comes from Laura. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, sorry, my error. I didn't vote. Hold it. Come on up, Stanley, sorry. Sorry. We have a motion and a second, and Stanley.
This is on the budget, right? This is on the budget, yeah?
Second reading. We've talked a lot
Second
about it,
reading,
and I
yeah.
actually went through.
I just tried to continue to show that, I was reading this again. There's a contingency of 300,000, the water has 680, the waste has 639. There's a total here I see of $1.7 million of extra money. I guess that's, what do they call that? Contingency in one case, but it's kind of a surplus, if you will, if I add it right. So we got a $1.7 million surplus, and now we tack on another $2 million surplus on top of that. And as I said before, and I don't want to repeat it too much, but our staff is so good and our people are so good, I don't think that we need, at this point, we're looking like almost a $4 million surplus involved. It just seems that it would be a fair thing for the taxpayer if you would take away the 5.2% tax rate that we're going to see and, take $1 million off the surplus. I mean, I don't see why we can't take $1 million off the surplus because we already got $1.7 million in within the budget. So it seems like it's just a wanna thing. I wanna do that. But is it absolutely necessary? The taxpayer is gonna suffer here. Is it absolutely necessary to have this? I don't think so. And 5.2% might go to 3% if we take 2% off, I guess. I don't know exactly the numbers. So I wish you would consider this going forward. How many surpluses, how much extra money are we going to plug in this thing at our expense? Right now, 5.2 on the rate. That's significant going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on the budget? Anybody from the public? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0, motion passes. Number 12, a motion to receive and place on file the research from the town solicitor on the possibilities of accepting the homestead exemption applications and applications for over 65 age exemption after the March 15, 2017 deadline for individuals who did not submit such applications prior to March 15, 2017. And I'm going to turn this over to the solicitor for comment.
Thank you,
So
Madam.
move.
Second.
Thank you, Madam President and members of the council. The short answer to the question that was posed to me is that I didn't find anything specifically dealing with an extension for the homestead. Curiously, there was, in the second part of the question was raised by, I believe, Councilwoman Lawler last time about the age exemption. Under a different chapter of the general laws, there is a possibility for an extension for those who are disabled or elderly. Those definitions are put into that specific chapter under Title 44. Title 44 is the dealing with taxation in general. So under Section 18 of Chapter 33 of Title 44, there is allows for the tax administrator to extend for a period of 6 months, essentially for good cause, for those people who are disabled or elderly. Those, I guess, those definitions are spelled out, what determines someone is disabled or elderly, dealing essentially with, I think, hospitalizations, sickness, things like that, that they missed the filing deadline. That only deals with disabled and elderly people. There is nothing under the homestead, certainly for the general laws dealing with the Narragansett homestead exemption or the other towns. I didn't find anything under the homestead specifically, but there is that curious little section of the, it's under, ironically, it's called just simply property tax relief. That's the name of that chapter. That's pretty broad. But under the definitions, they specifically spell out what's disabled, what's elderly, 65 and above, and there is a provision, a specific general law on point that says it may be extended for good cause due to illness, and that's at the discretion of the tax administrator.
Okay, thank you.
So Patty, I'm wondering if the people who are bringing this up to us are thinking that this section is what they're using, because the language of the section doesn't, it's property tax relief, it's general. So yeah, no, I think that your interpretation is it's all under the disabled elderly section, but I'm wondering if that's what some of these people coming forward were saying, because this language is pretty general. So I've been kind of trying to find out myself this research. I think I'm looking in the wrong place. So thank you for doing it, and I think if I find anything on my own, I'll just bring it
If
to
you
the
had
full
that,
council.
the general law that's attached, and you read that in a vacuum, it
Right.
makes it look like that you can get an extension, but when you look further at what section it's in, it specifically deals with elderly and disabled people.
Right.
So just to be clear, this is a motion to receive and place on file his research.
Yep.
That's all. It's not to actually
No, if
apply
we
the-
want, if someone wants to bring something forward on elderly disabled, I am going to do just a little bit because of that interpretive piece. If there's some enterprising researcher out there wants to help me, that would be wonderful. Thank you to get your extension. So, we're trying. So we're trying.
Okay, so it's to accept on file. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
5-0, motion passes. Thank you for the research, Patty.
Yes, thank you, Patty.
Number 13, a motion to approve the request from the Narragansett Lions Club for its annual Blessing of the Fleet Seafood Festival to be held Thursday, July 27th, Friday, July 28th, and Saturday, July 29th, 2017, at Veterans Memorial Park in the Gazebo Park, subject to approval of state and local regulations. Do I have a motion?
I'll move that.
Second.
Discussion, I just wanted to bring up, sorry, that was you, Matt, right, for the first one, and Mike. This is a little bit of a different motion that Thursday is on here as a trial, and the Executive Board of the Lions was looking to offer a Thursday night opportunity for the residents to see if it would bring in a good crowd on a Thursday. So it is kind of a practice program this year to see what Thursday nights would be. They had talked about over the years trying to do Sunday, extending that, but they went with Thursday, and the Executive Board would like to try it, and we'll study it at the end of the season and see what kind of impact, if any, if it was positive moving forward, if that's the way the Lions would continue to work that event for the club. So just wanted everybody to know that. So come on out on Thursday.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0, motion passes. 14, a motion to receive and place on file a report from the Community Developer Director addressing zoning provisions and other communities regulating the allowance of dimension variances with special use permits. This was put on by Mike. Do I have a motion?
I'll move that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion on this. This is just to place on file the work.
So this was our request last meeting to go about researching what other towns in the area
Yes.
have done. And so it was very comprehensive, so.
Any discussion about that? All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0, motion passes. Motion 15. Now, I'm going to need a little help, so let me see how this goes. Motion 15, a motion to introduce, read, pass, and accept as a first reading an ordinance adopting text revisions of Section 12.4, special use permits applicable of the zoning ordinance of the town of Narragansett. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
For discussion, Patrick. Okay, so this was a public hearing that we closed at the last meeting, so there can be limited discussion. But my feeling is from the council and from the last meeting that there were still a lot of questions around the text revisions and what it really meant to the zoning. And I don't know, I rolled back the tape and I watched, correct me if that was, if that's not how you felt.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just be honest. I mean, I understand, and Mike and I had a conversation today via email, so I mean, I understand conceptually, but I'm not a zoning expert, and I really, I've gone back and forth for the last 24 hours.
Right, so, and me as well, I called out, I reached out. They're pretty complex issues, and it was to the public the last time we heard. I know that we don't want to rush this because this is extremely important, so I didn't know, since it's closed, procedurally, can we do, I know everybody hates the word, but can we do a workshop, or can we do something to better understand and make sure that the public and the council has an understanding, because the public hearing's closed.
Well, what?
I'm looking to the legal counsel first to see. It's a closed, we had it up, we closed the public hearing. We would have to re-advertise and do it again, which I wouldn't mind after we did the workshop. Okay, well, we're just trying to procedurally, we want to be respectful and understand it, and then be able to make the decision if we think it's good for the town or not. So I'm going to direct our guidance to the solicitor first, so he can procedurally help us through this.
Okay. So procedurally, this is a first reading, correct?
Yes.
So there has to be a second reading. So no matter what happened this evening, would require a second reading before the council. As far as the logistics of what is contained and what you're voting on, that's why Steve Marcello would be here to describe the actual, I can help you on procedure, but as far as the ordinance, the special use permit, the zoning ordinance of the town, that would be Steve Marcello as far as the guts of whatever's in that. But as far as for tonight's purposes, if this requires a second reading, there'll be another vote on this at some point. Nothing officially changes or passes this evening.
Well, if it fails, though,
Yeah,
there's no
right,
second
so we
reading.
could-
That's correct. So if it did
So
prevail.
we could vote it down tonight, and then we could revisit it?
I would like
That's
to,
a-
I'd like to have Steve Marcello, we
Yeah, I
have
mean-
a zoning
Sure.
attorney for a reason.
Just, I was helping on procedure that if it goes down tonight, it just fails and they could start from scratch.
Okay.
You start from
So,
scratch.
okay, so the motion's on the floor. Anybody from the public wishing to speak? I did hear some comments. Come on up, Sue.
You know who I am. Okay, so I can't speak to it because I don't really understand it, but I know that there are those among you who have done a lot of research. You have a lot more information than those of us sitting in the audience. Respectfully, I would ask, as they do in the education field, when they are changing a policy, they put it up on the board so you can see what the initial policy is, and everyone is able to read it. And then, in red, they draw a line through what's coming out, and they write in parentheses what's going in. It's really much easier for the public to follow, or you could print it and provide it in writing. That's really what I want to speak about, is I do not feel, from the people that I've spoken with, that we are educated enough. The sense I have is nobody wants it. Everybody feels we're opening up a snake pit and just looking for trouble to make it easier to do some of the things like Lynn talked about, build a house in a swamp. So anyway, given that, I would respectfully ask that we do it so everyone can really see what the ordinance said and what they want to change. Thanks.
Thank you.
We kind of had that, though, Sue, at the public hearing. So, and we've gotten the feedback at the public hearing and different points of view on it. And my view is that we have zoning for a reason. It's there to preserve the character of the town. The feedback from the residents was pretty clear that at that public hearing that they did not want to water down the zoning and combine the special use permit and dimensional variance, because eventually your zoning exceptions swallow your rule. So the people, from right now, the people in the town have a concern about us watering down. As we heard in public comment, I thought that Sue Bush articulated it perfectly earlier. That was it. So I think it's time for us to, to stand up and to follow her lead.
Sue, did you want to come up?
I thought that Mr. DeLuca did provide the actual text change, but what is confusing is that if you go and research, you kind of have to do a word search on the use variance and the special use variance and the dimensional variance to find out. I mean, you go all over the place from section 12, section 11, section 6, section 2 of the ordinances. You're all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And so this relates heavily to the overlay districts, and I'm not fully aware of all the ins and outs of the overlay districts, so that's where I got a little hung up. So it is more complex than just the actual text changes. There's layers to this. So I would love to understand more about it as well, but all in all, it seems like it streamlines the process, and in my mind, that's not necessarily a good thing. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Harry?
So before Harry can come up, but I want to just say, what goes well with me in explanations is impact, right, analysis. So if there was something that somebody in the next iteration could show me that this change, this is what the impact might be, right? So we heard 39 Wanda Street. I mean, I'm not necessarily sure that that's...
That was DEM.
So my point, and that's a good point. So that was DEM that approved something that then we had to allow. So impact is really forceful for me.
Mike, did you hear that?
So showing one or two examples of where this might make sense or where it doesn't make sense, or what the overall impact would be in a district would be really helpful for me. So.
Harry?
Harry Schofield, Atlantic Avenue. As a director of NPRA and actually a co-founder of NPRA, as Chris said, we've grown about 20% this year, and to a very large degree, our membership resists and opposes any means of relaxing the path to any form of special use permits that lead to increases in zoning. This town has enough pressure on density, on parking, and all of the student issues. And, if I'm not sure what the background is that brought this to the forefront, but clearly it's people wanting to use land to greater densities than the land and the current, zoning is intended for. And the best towns and cities adhere to very strict zoning, and we should do the same. And there is no excuse for increasing or changing or streamlining a path to special use permits for special interest that may sponsor any such legislation here. So again, on behalf of NPRA, do not do this. Do not go any further with it. End it. We have enough density in this town. We have sewer problems, parking problems, lots of other problems. Please end this. And again, our membership is strongly behind what I'm saying here tonight. So please heed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol?
Carol Stewart Foster.
Mike, better you than me.
Carol Stewart Foster Lane. I brought this issue up last week, and you heard my comments at that time. The research that was done was not what I was expecting. The research was done, and it was excellent. I read through. However, what I brought up was density. So density, Narragansett housing units, 9470, per square mile, 781 housing units. North Kingstown, 11,327 housing units. Density per square mile, 2626. South Kingstown, 13,000 plus housing units. Density per square mile, 234.2. And East Greenwich, 5,403 housing units, and density per square mile, 329. And when you start, and also any changes in zoning, I don't know if this came down because of the roadmap of Rhode Island, which was pushed down by Governor Raimondo and the state, how this came about to start twiddling and diddling with the zoning changes or lots or whatever. But, and again, I did research difference between special use permits and variances, and I'm reading and I'm saying, oh, okay. So, it can be confusing, and I'm not an individual who should be going into that. But some points that I did find out was that when you do these things, you're supposed to make sure that you're adhering to your comprehensive plan. And was this ever, can that be brought up and look at, I don't think so. So my comment is, it should be part of the master plan, blueprint, recent comprehensive plan, overall land development section. And basically, you're looking for a community that retains its flexibility and its livability, not to downgrade things so that it becomes more dense and more difficult for the quality of life. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Anybody else wishing to speak?
Madam President.
Anybody else from the public? Let me finish the public, then we'll, Dennis, come on up.
Dennis Lynch, Central Street. I usually do my best when I use someone else's ideas or repeat what someone else has said. Really seems the issues tonight, and I think for a lot of planning and zoning issues, I tried to really understand what the change was. Sometimes it's like, you know, when you open your bank statement and you get new terms and conditions in there, and you know, they go on for 4 pages and you throw them away and hope everything works out all right. I spoke to one of the planning committee members today, and after a half hour kind of understood what the change was. Didn't sound at all like it was a burning issue, but sort of maybe a nice to have in terms of facilitating process at planning board. But I do think it comes back to what's been said already. What problem are we trying to fix? What is Narragansett, you know, so strict and so severe that we are not allowing developers or property owners to build on lots? I think the common belief is that we've probably been a little bit too loosey-goosey in the past, and the farther you go back in the past, the more loosey and goosey we've been. So when we're finally sort of trying to tighten these things up, have a new comprehensive plan, are thinking about an expanded historic commission, it seems to all sync up with the fact that I think things are okay now. You know, they may require tightening in terms of some of the development, but I do truly believe this is going in the opposite direction, and hope, because you've got so many things to deal with on your agendas going forward, rather than rather than a workshop, additional voting, just, you know, probably put it to bed tonight as something we don't need. Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak? Seeing none. Oh, Patrick?
Yeah, Madam President, why don't we delay this vote? I agree with Mr. Mannix, although I think he wants to kill it, but, and then Mike, can you put together a PowerPoint presentation to kind of break everything down?
So,
And,
yeah, so
You know.
we do have a motion on the
Yeah.
floor, so let's take a vote and see what happens with the
Right.
vote, right?
right, sure.
And
Do
then,
you want him to
yeah,
explain it?
No, I think we have a vote on the floor, we heard from the public, let's vote, and then we'll plan our next steps. So those are in favor signify by saying aye.
Wait, the question is, if we can either vote to continue it, or we can kill it tonight and have it come back as another.
It can come back anew at another
So I
time.
say we do that. I agree with Matt. Let's kill it tonight and then.
So let's do a vote.
Let's do a vote.
Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
No.
4-1, motion dies or fails. So now to Patrick's question, yes, at any time, we can study it, we can have another public hearing if we advertise, we can have a workshop. So we're certainly willing to look at something down the road, but for tonight, this motion has failed. Moving on to number 16. Motion to approve the purchase of an aeration equipment from Aqua Solutions for the Scarborough wastewater treatment facility in the amount of $75,700. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Discussion?
It's quite the system.
Anybody have any questions for Jeff? Anybody from the public?
He's updated.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0, motion passes. Motion 17, a motion to adopt a resolution requesting the General Assembly amend Title 44, Chapter 3, Section 23 of the General Laws to authorize the town to enact a progressive income-based exemption for residents over the age of 70 whose household income is not more than 80% of the median income for such a household in Narragansett. This was put on by Jill and Patrick. Do I have somebody move it?
Yeah, I'll move that motion.
I'll second. Oh, no, I'm sorry, someone else should second it.
Second.
Matt, discussion.
Okay, this is something we voted on and approved 2 years ago, and made it up to the General Assembly. In their wisdom, we had 4 different tax exemptions that year, and they did not carry this one forward because Narragansett had enough exemptions for that calendar year. So this is basically an elderly exemption based on need, and Councilman Joe Lawler is willing to work with me on this one, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks for the offer.
And basically, it's, right now, if you're over 65, you get $55 off as an exemption. This one is based on 70% of the HUD income, which is basically around $60,000 a year. So if you're over 70 years old, been in a resident or owner-occupied for 5 years, and making an income of $60,000 or less, over 70, you'd be able to get tax relief of up to 4.2% of your gross annual income, or a max of $2,500 per year. So it's based on need instead of age. So this is something we put forward.
Great. Anybody else? Richard?
Just a general request again. We have not solved the acoustics problem here. We don't tell speakers that they are not speaking into the microphone. The council sometimes drifts away from its microphone, and this really is unfortunate. Some very good things are being said, are not being heard. I opposed this 2 years ago, and this particular motion is at the gibberish level. It uses a term like progressive. Clearly, someone has not studied American history. But what this does not say, what Patrick motioned. I believe, number one, a person's income tax return is a private matter and not a public matter. Number two, I would never use the word need here without doing a research in not only income but person's wealth. Why should I be subject to this particular thing? By the way, I have did a little tax doodly and now I can qualify. So this is all a farce. But why should I be penalized when the homestead people, the veterans, and every other group don't have a needs test? This is wrong. Either we all have needs tests or we have no needs test.
Thank you. Jim, as far as the acoustics, we have been talking about that. Can you follow up and check on that? Because that's been an issue. Stanley.
Justice for all. That's why that one rate was really the justice for all, and it's a shame it went away. And now we get these things crawling in, and $60,000 you're using for a level at this particular, $60,000. It's a lot of money. All I can say, I've been around for almost 20 years around here, and I haven't seen many old people come up here and beg and demand and help me, I'm poor, give me this thing. I haven't seen that. In fact, now he's the second one I see on the other side of the fence. If you remember, Mrs. Wiener come up here and she doesn't want it either. So the fact is, the majority of people who have spoken to this issue did not want it. Only two did, but nobody else did, you know? So it's obvious that this is, we should not be handing out favors for anyone at all. Nobody should have any favors. We all pay the same thing. That's the justice for all we're committed to here. Now, it also seems like the council may be buying votes, huh? You know that the old people vote more, so they're going to go to the voting booth and vote more. It has that in the back of your mind, that kind of thing. Why are they talking it out? I don't know. But I just say that the main issue is it's not just to tax one person more than another or one person get a favor. Again, special interest is what's going to stop in the state, and it has to start here in the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen. Karen.
I'd like to respond to all this.
Karen Shepshowitz, Wanda Street. I'm flabbergasted that people don't have compassion for elderly people who don't have enough money to survive in this town. I'm flabbergasted. It's easy for people who haven't walked in their shoes to make judgments. And if people care about other people in this community, that should be taken into consideration. I one time had said we're turning into a Hamptons 2 here, with the cost of the assessments and the taxes on the assessments. It makes it extremely hard for poor people to stay in this town. And there aren't very many alternatives either. It comes to mind a story I read when I was a child. A certain Eskimo tribe used to put their elderly people out on a slab of ice to go into the water. What's called senocide or senocide, because they felt that the elderly had done their part and it was time for them to pass over the horizon. And it's sort of the feeling I get in this town. If you can't afford to stay here, then move out. And there are people that have big pensions. There are people that own lots of property and have made their money, and there are others that have not had the good grace to have that money in their bank account, not through any fault of their own. And it's very sad that seniors would have to feel they have to move out of town because they can't afford to stay here. I think it's just very sad. And what does it really reflect upon the community? It's just very sad.
Thank you, Karen. Any further discussion?
Catherine Celebrano, 48 Earls Court. Don't we already have an exemption for people 65 and older based on income and need so that they get a break on their taxes? Don't we already have that?
Yeah, but
It's a flat.
Yeah, there's a flat.
It's a flat amount?
Yeah, there's a
Sure.
flat, and then there's a lower income, which is like 30,000. It's, you know, it's not up with the time. This hasn't been updated since like the 80s.
So this is going to replace all of those other ones?
Laura.
See, the problem I have with this is
Yeah.
that someone could have
It's up to
say, an income of $48,000, 80% of
Yep.
the 60,000, and yet have quite a few assets. And this doesn't ask questions about that.
Right.
And I think that if we need to ask questions and narrow down the group that actually needs this, and therefore we can make it bigger for the group that actually needs this.
Right.
As opposed, this is way too vague. You know, somebody could have a $48,000 income and have plenty of money in the bank, and this doesn't speak to any of this. And if you give people a break who don't need it because you're not asking enough questions, you don't have the money left in the pool to give the people who need it more of a break.
Right.
It's all mathematics, really. That's what it comes down to. Thank you.
Well, this, can I speak?
Yeah, of course you can.
Well, this was an effort to keep older folks in their homes, and I've had discussions with elderly people. They're not going to come to a town meeting and ask for help. They're proud. There's pride involved. I know several families in town who've been here, bought their house in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and they just want to finish their years out in the home that they live in. So that's what this is about. And
So
so, you know,
we have an existing exemption, and maybe we could look at raising that, and it would be the same.
well, I think you'd still have to go to the General Assembly to alter that.
But we could just, the existing exemption that we have. we
Is
could just raise-
125.
yeah, we could raise it up if you want. I mean, it's completely up to you, but that would be another way to look at it, so we know.
But this is
Some of
actually,
them.
this has got less financial impact because it's based on income. The 55, 125 is based on age at 65. If you're over 65, you get an exemption, you apply for it. This one here is based on income. So there's a little research involved, and, you know, so.
There are just too many holes in this. Somebody can have deferred income, and it's not on their income tax return. This is, you know, I just feel that too many people who don't deserve this are going to end up, you know, grabbing it, and then, as I said, the pool of money it doesn't go to where it's supposed to go. The exemption really doesn't go where it's supposed to go. And you can make it bigger for the people who really need it if you tighten this up.
Thank you.
Other towns have
Thanks.
this.
So what's the pleasure of the council on this?
I think, one thing, I think the sentiment to give an elderly exemption and increase it is a good idea, but I think the simplicity with, when we do any kind of legislation is important. And right now, this isn't really simple. Right now, it's a 125 flat. We could just increase that amount. That might be the better way to approach this, ask for an increase in that amount, because first of all, we're changing it from age 65 to 70. We have a flat exemption right now, and we're going to have people come and bring income verification to town hall. We're adding a kind of layer of bureaucracy there that's, to be honest, is a little annoying, I think, for people. So I would say that what I would think is maybe could we increase the exemption amount, just the flat amount?
Okay.
What do you guys think?
Okay.
I mean,
It was Patrick's intent a couple of years ago for this, and I like the idea, because anytime that we can help out the elderly, I want to do
Agreed.
that, and want to keep people in their houses and keep people feeding themselves and things, all needs that they have, so. Laura, is there any, are you aware of any town that has an exemption, such as what Patrick had put on motion, that also includes income requirements beyond showing what's in their bank account, things like that? Because Sue brings a good point. We just want to make sure we can narrow this down.
so I'm just asking Patrick if he wants to continue and work on it, bring it back, and then maybe with the flat.
All
Let's
right,
just,
Laura-
let's just vote on it up and down, and if you want to kill it, I can always
No, I don't
revive
want to
it.
kill it. I don't want.
So let me just say, yeah, I don't want to kill it. I think it's important. Karen, I absolutely, before you come up and speak again, I just want to say one thing. So, so I grew up here and left and came back, and in the town that I lived in Connecticut, the demographics shifted and shifted and shifted and continued to shift, and the people that were in their homes in the 40s and 50s had to move because the taxes became just exorbitant. Now, this might not be the best method to do it. There might be some tweaking to go on, but if you continue to let the people that are in their houses leave, those houses will be bought by other people that may or may not have full-time interests in town. So that's my view. I agree with Karen, and I think it's an absolutely noble thing to do, to keep the folks that have been here for 40 and 50 years in their homes until they decide they want to leave, not by our tax rate, so.
Thank you.
Yep, yeah, I'd like to make the motion to continue this so we can go ahead and tighten up the language. So I
Second.
think we all want to do it.
All right, so Patrick just seconded that, so we'll make a motion to continue. There's a second. She just made a motion to continue. Patrick just seconded that motion to continue because we have a flat exemption now, so they're going to work on it and bring it back. So we're going to vote to continue it so that we can do some more work on that. Okay? All those in favor?
Well, we're continuing.
We're continuing it because it's not quite ready. We're looking at a flat rate. We want to do a little more work on it. So we're not going to continue discussion on it at this point because they're going to bring it back.
I just want to make a little comment. Because of the General Assembly, are closing shop in June, right? And so there's a little timetable on this.
You're already late, I mean.
No, not really, not really.
Well,
I think
if
if we
you bring
get
it
it up
I mean,
there-
no, right, but I mean, you're
You
on
know?
the late end. I mean, when we did the homestead, we were up there in
So
January.
we'll bring it back at next
Yeah.
meeting.
Okay, that sounds good. Bring it back. There'll be more information, more for the public to hear. All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0, motion passes to continue. 18, a motion to schedule a work session for Monday, June 5th at 6 o'clock to review the water and wastewater enterprise funds and a financial analysis and rates. I need a motion.
Oh, sorry, so move.
Second.
This is on a council night, it's before, it's at 6 o'clock, so. Is that good for everybody?
Sure,
Okay.
I got nothing better.
We're just scheduling a workshop for a water analysis. Do you have an issue with the scheduling of the workshop? Stanley?
Really?
No, really, because we're just voting to set a date for a workshop.
Can't make it that night?
It has to be on the date of the schedule.
I'm going to come here to commend you that you're looking at the financial situation. All right? I'm so happy that somebody's getting together to look at the finance analysis.
Thank
I want
you.
to thank Jeff and everybody concerned. I see something positive happening here.
Excellent.
We're
We're going to
paying attention
schedule it
costs
now, Stanley,
and
okay?
finance.
Thank
Don't
you.
worry,
Thank you.
Stanley.
All those in favor of Monday, June 5th from the council?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0, motion passes.
Stanley, we're gonna hang him.
Motion 19, a motion to schedule a voluntary bus tour with the Historic District Commission and the town council members to view the areas of possible expansion on the historic districts proposed by the committee, and this motion is put on by me.
So move.
Second.
This is one of the student bus tours, right?
Who seconded that?
I did.
Mike
Uh,
did.
That would be me.
Discussion about the scheduling of the Historic Commission.
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0, motion passes.
Executive
A
session.
motion to retire to executive session of the Narragansett Town Council at the end of the May 15, 2017 Town Council meeting in accordance with Rhode Island General Laws 4246-4 and 4246-5A, to discuss collective bargaining regarding Rhode Island laborers, district union, public service employees, Local 1033, and AFSCME, AFL-CIO, Local 94, to discuss the acquisition or lease of real property for the public purpose of, regarding the library and Sunset as in accordance with 4246-5A5, and appoint J. Patrick O'Neill as clerk pro tem. Do I have a motion?
So move.
A second. Jill's the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
We need a roll call vote.
Mike Moretti, aye.
Councilman Murray, aye.
Matt Mannix, aye.
Jill Lawler, aye.
Susan Bonanno, aye. 5-0, motion passes. That concludes our meeting. Thank you. Have a good evening.